This is a book. It's a Chinese book. It's a book in Chinese about fables, short stories about fables. And it's a dang good book. This is what I've been reading recently. Why have I been reading a book in Chinese about fables? Well, it all started in Lanyu. Lanyu is this mystical, magical island that I went to recently, about a month ago. Came back from a holiday there. And it was an awesome place. I wasn't planning on doing any studying I wasn't planning on being inspired or motivated to study Chinese. But on one of these days in Lanyu, you guys can check it out, look it up on Google. It's on the east coast of Taiwan. Very cool island. Anyways, on one of these days, I think it was nighttime, the breeze was cool. We wanted to get some dinner, so we go into this local pizza place run by a friend that we had just met there, Pearl. Shout out to Pearl. And we go in, we order a pizza, we sit down, we're waiting for the pizza, and in comes a little kid, I don't know, maybe 5 years old, probably older, maybe 7, 8, I don't know. He comes in nonchalantly and he walks up to the bookshelf. There's a bookshelf there. And he just pulls out a book, sits down, and starts reading, starts flipping the pages. And I'm intrigued. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. He's probably some local kid, comes in, he knows Pearl, knows the restaurant, comes in every once in a while, wants to inspire some foreigners, flipping some pages on a children's book. I was certainly inspired. And I sit up beside him, and I'm watching him. He's just totally into it. He's reading. And what really surprised me was how fast he was reading. He was just flipping through the pages, scanning, and these were fables. It's like fables about animals, lions, pigeons, snakes, snails, who knows, all sorts of things, all sorts of animals. But he was flipping through it, and he was so engaged. I sat up beside him, and he didn't even notice me. He didn't even care. And he just kept reading. And then all of a sudden, he stopped reading, closed the book, put it back in the shelf, and walked off. And I was like, dang, I need to start reading Chinese fables. I don't know what it was about this experience, but it motivated me. I was like, this is what I need to do when I come back. And that's precisely what I did. That's why when I came back to the main island, I went to an old bookstore, and I got this. And this is what I've been reading. Short stories, short fables. But there's a problem. What's the problem? The problem is that this is something that I've tried in the past, reading children's books. I've tried multiple times actually since learning Chinese, and I've always given up, or I've always felt that it was way too hard. And it is. It's very, very hard. It's not easy. A lot of people think it's easy to read Chinese books. Wait, let me step back here. Reading in general is difficult. I mean, just think about it. How often do you read in your native language, in English? I'm just trying to think back. I used to read a lot more. Now I'm reading a lot less. And so even in my native tongue, my native language, or the language I'm most proficient in English, I'm not reading that much. And that's just simply because reading is difficult. It doesn't light up our dopamine centers as much as, checking social media, checking Instagram, checking Twitter, YouTube. Every time I'm reading, I'm always fidgeting. My ADHD brain is like thinking, what else can I do? It's not easy to read. So that's first off. We're already handicapped. It's not easy to read. And then reading Chinese, reading in a foreign language is that much harder. So we got to find things that are suitable. And so what's the point here? The point is reading children's books. One might think that it's simple. I mean, children read it. If children read it, why can't we? But it's actually really tricky. I mean, going through this book of fables, is probably one of the harder things that I've had to read, but it's just so engaging. It's so interesting, and it's short, bite-sized, and that's what I really like about it. I'm learning about the culture, the people here. There's always some sort of lesson in every fable, And that's what I really like about it. There's pictures. That's what I like about it. Even though it's kind of tricky, it's very tricky actually. There's a lot of idioms. Almost every sentence there's like a word or an idiom that I don't understand and I have to look it up. So it's very slow, but it's very engaging. It's very interesting. But why is it hard? Why are these children's books so hard? It's because children, if you think about it, children in their native tongue, like for example, children who grew up here in Taiwan, who speak Chinese, who have been immersed in the language, like if they start reading at 5, that's 5 years they've been immersed in the language. And so their level is way higher than ours. Like if we think that we can read a children's book after 6 months or even a year after learning, sure, maybe, yeah, you can try. It might be a challenge. If you've been studying a lot, if you've been reading a lot, sure, you might be able to do it, but it'd be very challenging. That's just a year versus 5 years for these guys. These children who we think we underestimate, we think their level is not that. No, children, if you think about it, children, man, they're pretty much fluent. They're way fluent, way more fluent. Their level, their ability, they're always immersed in it. Every day, they're hearing their parents speak, they're speaking back. And so even our 1 year of learning, I mean, I've been here 2.5 years, and every day, even though I get a little bit of Chinese, it's nothing compared to how much they're exposed to, how much they're immersed in. And so children's book, not easy at all. So what should we do? Give up altogether? Nah, man, don't give up. This is what you gotta do. I mean, sure, children's books are hard. You probably don't want to jump into a children's book when you first start studying. This is what I did. I gave up very easily. Even now, it's very challenging after 2.5 years of studying. And so what I would recommend in terms of reading, because I do think reading is very, very rewarding and very, very helpful for learning a language. It can increase your vocabulary a lot. What I would recommend is starting slow, taking baby steps. No pun intended, taking baby steps. I mean, if you can imagine, before I read this children's book, before I read this, I was reading tons of other things, little things that you don't even think about day in and day out. So probably sentences. Initially, I was just reading sentences in textbooks, maybe online. And then I was reading text messages, language exchanges. Maybe you're messaging each other, friends that you meet, text messages, easy text messages. And then I was reading, when I came to Taiwan, I was reading street signs, billboards, signs everywhere. I would try to read it, signs on windows, signs in libraries, signs in washrooms, beside the urinals, signs in coffee shops, street signs, traffic signs. I was trying to read all of that. I was trying to decipher it. I would take a picture and read it at home. Receipts, I was reading that. All of these things, when I was watching a YouTube video or a movie or a TV show, I'd read the subtitles. That's reading. I would be reading short articles, longer articles. And even before this, I was reading books. So short books. Books are great, and some books are actually easier than children's books. Some books that I've read, for example, self-help books. A lot of people don't talk about this, but I think that self-help books are they're the perfect sort of transition into target language, reading into your target language. Why? Because they're easier to read. I mean, just think about it. If you've ever read a self-help book in your native language, in English, you'll realize that a lot of the language is a lot easier to go through. I mean, it's way easier than reading a self-help book than reading a novel. It's just more colloquial. It's like speaking with a friend. It's like chatting with your friend. So read self-help books. I've read a lot of them in Chinese, and it's always a lot easier. And so these are all things that, I've read comics. I've tried to read comics. I've tried to play video games and read, subtitles in Chinese where the video game is maybe in Chinese. And so these are all things that I've tried reading before reading this children's book, or before some success reading this children's book in Chinese. And so recommend reading, taking baby steps. I mean, the other thing is reading at your level. There's graded readers, and these are perfect because they cater to specific levels. Graded readers like Mandarin Companion, try to find graded readers because they have specific levels and they only use a limited number of new characters so that you can still get engaged into a story. You can still find reading fun and engaging, comprehensible, but they're limiting the vocabulary so that you're getting that repetition still. And then the most important thing probably is reading things that you find interesting. Whatever I'm reading, if I'm reading something that is very boring or like a textbook, I'm not interested in it, it's dry, I'm not going to be motivated to keep reading. I might be motivated to read one day, but I'm not going to come back day in and day out. Discipline is hard. A lot of people talk about discipline. The problem with discipline is that it's hard. It's the holy grail, It'd be amazing if we could have discipline all the time. But the problem is we're human and it's hard. And it's not that we shouldn't strive for discipline. I'm all for discipline. I'm all for, getting more discipline, training ourselves, building up this pattern, this habit of discipline. But we also have to be aware, look out for the low-hanging fruits. The low-hanging fruit is interest, your passion, whatever you're interested in. And so if you find a book about fables interesting, if you find a book about, some self-help book, business book, anything, comics, video games, that's the low-hanging fruit. You're ready. If you tell me you can play a video game all day, I'm there, done. Let's do it. So you got to find these low-hanging fruits that make learning fun and easy and motivating and inspiring so that you can come in day after day. You want to continue reading. You want to tell your friends about it. You want to, after you finish reading this book, be like, damn, this was so cool. I want to read another book like this. Or maybe I'll read a different type of book. So it motivates you and inspires you. That's precisely why I'm reading this fable book. It's because it's interesting. It's fun. Like I said, I like the short aspect of it. I like that I'm learning a little bit about the culture. I like that I'm learning all these idioms that, in my mind, I'm thinking these kids are learning as well. So I feel like I'm part of the culture a little bit, or at least I'm immersing into it. I'm learning what they're learning. And I like that there's little lessons. It sort of packages these little fables into short little stories that is more digestible. And I like that. So I'm excited to read more of this. You can see that I'm reading this with a pencil, and I'm highlighting or circling all the things that I don't understand in almost every sentence. So there's things, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm circling a lot. And so I hope you guys look for some interesting reads. I think reading is very, very effective for building vocabulary, like I said. So try it out, test it out. What do you guys think? Do you guys like reading in your target language? Have you tried reading? Have you tried reading a children's book and felt defeated and demotivated? And did you try again later when your Chinese language ability improved, and were you more inspired? Or what else do you guys read? Do you guys like to read magazines, food labels? I don't know. Coffee labels? Do you guys like to read menus? What do you guys like to read? Let me know in the comment section below. See you guys next time.